So we're going to be making 2 chicken pot pies. So I have my KitchenAid right here. I have 2 8 ounces of this Romano. We're going to start off maybe 6 cups of flour because I am making 2 chicken pot pies, and each of those is going to be double crust, a crust on the bottom and a crust on the top. Alright, so that's 6 cups of flour. This is Celtic sea salt. We're just going to put a couple pinches. And when I say a couple, I mean literally it's just 3 fingers together. And that's about maybe a quarter of a teaspoon. So we're going to throw that in there. And we're going to go ahead and get our butter chopped up, just a little bit smaller than, and if you are working with frozen butter, you can actually just grate it with a box grater. It will be fine. Alright, so that's 8 ounces. I'm just cutting them about that size, maybe 1.5 by 3/4 of an inch, half an inch. Alright, so that is a pound of butter. And I do have some water here. As we crust, you don't want to add a lot of water. You want the butter to be, is going to be what's going to hold it together. The water is just to help it along when needed. So we're just going to put a little bit in there. I might have put a tablespoon. I'm not sure how long this is going to take, but I'll bring you right back as soon as we get it going. Okay, so we got it mixed up as well as we can in here. So now we're going to start working with it by hand. That's our dough. So let's start working it by hand. We're just going to knead it. I might have put about 1/4 cup of water altogether, maybe not even that, a little bit. And I really did it 1 tablespoon at a time. Got a little bit of crumbs left in my bowl. We're going to go ahead and get that on top. We're going to knead this all together. Then we're going to divide it into 4s. And then we're going to put it in the refrigerator wrapped up in saran wrap. There we go. That was 6 cups of flour, 1 pound of butter, and a pinch of salt, and a little bit of water. Cut it in 4s. I have a bench scraper right here. Make these round little discs, and then we're going to wrap them up in saran wrap. We're going to try to make them as even as possible, but if it's not a big deal because the bottom needs a little bit more because it's going to go at the bottom of the bowl and up the edges. So we do need a little bit more on the bottom than we do on the top, but we can make it do. Alright, so there's our 4 pie crusts for 2 chicken pot pies, because we need 2 for the bottom and 2 for the top. Alright, we'll go get some saran wrap and I'll be right back. Alright, so we're going to wrap them up in saran wrap, and then we're going to be putting them in the refrigerator. So let's do the other 3 just like that. Alright, so 1, 2, 3, 4 pie crust. Now we're ready for tomorrow. Alright, Alright, so we got our potatoes peeled, sitting in some water. We're going to parboil these. We're not going to cook them all the way because we don't want mushy potatoes in our pot pie, but we don't want to put frozen potatoes, raw potatoes, and freeze them. So we're going to go ahead and get these strained off, and then we're going to go ahead and get them in a pot of water and get them boiling just for a few minutes, just so they're not fork tender, but like in pasta, al dente. So we're going to go ahead and get started on that. Sink, I have a strainer. I'm going to strain that starchy water off, and then we're going to move this over to the stove and get that started. That's furthest from this camera right now, from where you guys are hanging out. We'll put it on medium heat, and then we're going to dump our strained potatoes in there. We're just going to cook this just for a few minutes. The lid. And while that is coming up to cook, we're going to go ahead and get started on the filling of our chicken pot pie. So this is going to be a cream base. So I have 2 of these 7-ounce bottles of heavy cream. It's an A2 heavy cream I get from Azure Standard. This is the best heavy cream there is. And then I have an 8-ounce brick of cream cheese. We do have flour. We're going to make a roux. I got a quart of chicken stock. I got 4 cloves that are minced. And in here I have a teaspoon of basil, a teaspoon of oregano, a teaspoon of thyme, and just a pinch of crushed red peppers. And of course, salt and pepper. We have some onions and some carrots that I have diced up and stuck in the freezer. They've been sitting out. Then we're going to put green beans, peas, and corn with the potatoes in a cream sauce with the chicken. So we're going to go ahead and get started on the chicken. So we're going to add just a little bit of olive oil into our Dutch oven. We're going to get that nice and heated. So right here I have a little bit over 2 pounds, it's almost 3 pounds of chicken that we cubed just a few minutes ago. I'm running out of room on my countertop. I do have a backup chicken stock just in case I need it. I forgot to put my apron back on, so now we're ready. So the potatoes are on a medium heat, and the green Dutch oven for the chicken pot pie filling is on a medium heat. I do have the peas and the corn and the green beans in the refrigerator. I don't want they're thawed, but I don't want them to get too soggy. So once we get the oil to do a little glistering in here and shiny, then we know we're ready. The hotter the oil, without burning it, the hotter the pot, the less likely your chicken will stick. We have salt and pepper right here, ready for seasoning also. You have to season your meals in layers. Alright, so the oil looks ready. So we're going to add the chicken. We're going to get that seared up in here. And season it with some salt and pepper. I'm going to put a generous pinch or 2 of salt and a generous pinch of pepper. Get all of our containers open. I got the chicken broth open. The heavy cream. I don't know if you could see that, but it's very thick cream. And as soon as the potatoes come up to a boil, we're going to turn those off, strain them, and put them in some cold water just to stop the cooking process. Oh, it's been cooking about 10 minutes. Now we're going to go ahead and add our carrots and our onions. Alright, the potatoes are starting to come to a boil. But we only want to cook it just a little bit. It's still hard. We can't get a fork in them yet. We don't want them fork tender. We just want to get them just par cooked so we can shock it some cold water. So when we add it to our chicken pot pie, they can finish cooking in the oven when we're ready to cook it. Take it out of the freezer, put it in the oven, and then the potatoes will cook with the pot pie. The chicken still has a lot of liquid in it. We're going to let that cook down just a bit. But we don't have to worry about it too much because that is actually a chicken stock, basically, because it's just the water from the chicken and the vegetables. This or still firm, but I can get a fork in it a little easier. They're not mushy. So we're going to go ahead and turn it off and put it in some cold water and shock it. Then we're going to add some cold water to it to stop the cooking process. Until we're ready for the potatoes. Then we'll strain this water off and then we'll build our chicken pot pie. Alright, so they're all submerged. We'll stop the cooking process. Now we're going to move back over to the chicken. Okay, so to our chicken and the carrots and the onions, we're going to add our 2 tablespoons of flour. We're going to make a roux. We're going to go ahead and add our 4 cloves of garlic. We're just going to let that flour cook down. Just get that raw flour taste out of it. We're not going to need this whole quart, I don't believe, because we're making a cream base filling for our chicken pot pie. So we're going to add about half of this. So we're going to add about 2 cups. We're going to let that thicken up with the flour, with the roux. Meantime, we're going to go ahead and get our Italian seasoning in. We have oregano, thyme, basil, and crushed red peppers. Their cream cheese cubes. It's already starting to smell really good in here. All right, now we're going to put our cream cheese in there. And now we're going to add our heavy cream. This stuff is so thick. I mean, it's got this thick layer of heavy cream right there on the top. Second one in. So our chicken is done. So it is safe to taste it and see if it needs anything. Salt and pepper. And it needs salt and pepper. We're going to add 2 more pinches of salt and a pinch of pepper. And we're just going to let that cook down just a little bit. It is creamy. Very creamy. And if we need to thicken it up, you can always make a slurry with cornstarch and water, and that will thicken it up. Just make sure your liquid is hot before you add it. So we're going to let that cook for about 20 minutes and then we'll check on that. I do have it on between a medium and a high boil. I tasted it again and I did add just a little bit more salt, but please add salt and pepper to your taste. Now I'm going to start adding my thawed out frozen vegetables. This is 8 ounces of corn, 8 ounces of green beans, and 8 ounces of peas. Alright, other than the potatoes, this looks like chicken pot pie. Alright, so pot pie filling is cool. We have our par cooked potatoes that have been sitting in cold water. We're going to go ahead and add that to our filling. So let's go ahead and move over and start making the pie crust. Okay, so our filling has cooled off. Our dough that we made last night is a little bit pliable, so we'll be able to roll this out with no problem. So we've got our 2 pie crust pans here. I have a piece of paper towel. We are going to butter these down. I have some butter right here that's at room temperature, and we're just going to slather some butter on here. So when we are ready to bake this, we'll take it out of the freezer the night before, put it in the refrigerator, and the day of we'll just put it in a 350-degree oven, and we will bake this till the crust gets nice and brown. We are going to have a bottom crust and a top crust till the crust gets brown. So I have my trusty rolling pin right here. Flour our surface, and we're going to start rolling this out. Alright, so we're going to flour our surface. It is still a little stiff, but it is pliable. We're going to get it to about 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch thick, until it's big enough to reach the edges of our pie pan. We're going to start rolling this up over our rolling pin. We're going to move our pie pan over here, and we're going to slowly unroll this over here. Get it in the center, push it down. We're not going to worry about trimming this yet. Alright, we have it all formed in there. Let's move this out of the way. We're going to move on to the top crust. I have a bench scraper. I'm going to move all my flour into the center. Pull out our top dough. Get that ready. And make sure it's nice and coated with flour so it doesn't stick to the board. Alright, let's start rolling this one out. Between 1/4 and 1/8 of an inch. I'm going to roll that up over the rolling pin. We're going to set that aside. Now we're going to move on to filling this thing up. Alright, so we have our bottom crust, we have our top crust, and we have our filling. We went ahead and added the potatoes in here. Potatoes were par cooked and chilled in cold water so they won't continue to cook. Our sauce has cooled down a bit. Now we're going to go ahead and start filling up this pie crust with chicken and potatoes, all the vegetables, and a lot of this broth, this cream sauce that we have in here. We're just going to fill it up. Okay. I do have a slight mess over here. Let me clean this up a bit. I have a little bit of water. We're going to put water along the edge so that the two doughs will stick together. Just using my finger, rubbing it on the edge. We're going to make sure we get it all around. And we're going to pick up our top crust and roll it right on top. Let's get it in the center. Right here I have a little crack. It's not a big problem. We'll just pinch that. We're just going to use our fingers and along the edge of the pie pan, we're just going to smush it down. We're going to take our kitchen shears and we're just going to cut it about, this is the edge of the pan right here. So the edge of the pan is right here. We're going to go about a half an inch past the edge of the pan. Watch your fingers underneath. And we're just going to trim that off. Now we're going to take it and we're just going to pinch it under. Make an edge all around this pie crust. And now we're just going to take our fingers, pinch it together, and push. Pinch and push. Again, pinch and push. And there we go. Take a knife and we're just going to cut 4 little slits in here. That way we don't have to worry about doing that when we're ready to cook. Alright, one pie down. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Some flour. And another pie crust. No sticking to the board. Alright, so let's get this rolled out. Again, 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch thick. Get that rolled up. Our pie pan here. We're going to roll this out on top of it. Get it centered. Notice we're a little short right over here. It's not a problem. We'll take some of this off that's hanging. We're going to add a little bit of water so we can get this done. We'll call this a band-aid. And then we're just going to lay that right on top. Get the top one rolled out. A little bit more flour. Get it all nice. And 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch thick. Let's get this rolled up. set it aside. Bring our pie crust over here and let's get this one filled up. Well, the toppings were right on for 2 pies. The filling was right on. Alright, now we're going to take our water and our finger and we're just going to moisten the edge here so that the 2 crust sticks together. Alright, now we're going to roll our top dough over top of it. Right, push down on the edges. We're going to tuck that top underneath the bottom. And again, pinch and squeeze them together. Go ahead and put our slits in it. Alright, that's our second pot pie. Alright, there we go. We have 2 chicken pot pies. We're going to put one in the freezer. We're going to have one tonight for dinner. The one in the freezer will be for a later date when life gets hectic and you want something hearty and filling. You have a meal ready to go. It will take about an hour to cook in a semi-thawed state. So just take it out of the freezer the night before. Put aluminum foil over top of it when I bake it, and then once I know the inside reaches 165 degrees, then I'll take the aluminum foil off so the top will get nice and golden brown, and then we're ready to eat a chicken pot pie, both tonight and later.